Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night with yet another one of our backtracking retrospectives where we take a look back at some old legacy Star Trek episodes. This is going to be a big one. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this. The classic Star Trek Voyager episode, Blink of an Eye. And I have Aaron joining Taylor and I tonight.
Hello.
So without further ado, we can go ahead and get the show started. I'm Fatheree.
I'm Miss Taylor.
I'm Aaron.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 323rd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are discussing Star Trek Voyager Season 6, Episode 12, Blink of an Eye. So this is another one of our backtracking retrospectives. We plan to do a lot of these this year, so hopefully people are enjoying them, but this is basically, we take our deep dive discussion format we use when we talk about new Star Trek episodes of new Star Trek shows, and we apply that to an older episode. Like tonight is our first Voyager episode we've done in this format, Blink of an Eye. Teleplay by Scott Miller and Joe Menosky, story by Michael Taylor, and directed by Gabriel Beaumont. We'll get into that in just a moment. But I'm excited to have Aaron on board tonight for this one.
Hey.
And
Aaron, because I'm not talking about TAS.
Exactly, but I know I've heard you mention before that kind of your go-to Star Trek comfort show is Star Trek Voyager, right?
Yes.
So
My Captain Proton shirt.
You donned the Captain Proton shirt. Yeah. So and I think I've heard you mention this episode in particular as a favorite of yours, but I know a lot of people really cherish this one. When it first aired, I remember enjoying it, but it didn't really stand out to me that much until I started talking to other people, other fans who really clinged on to this one in particular. And it made me, on revisit, start to see like, oh yeah, this actually is pretty damn great. So I have a lot to say on it, and I'm curious to hear what y'all say about it. Before we get started, though, I do have a bit of housekeeping, and I also want to announce that next week, Taylor and I have plans to have Rachel on the show for another backtracking retrospective. I'll tell y'all what episode it is at the end of the show, but we're going to go back to TNG. We're going to do our second TNG episode. But I don't think it's one that a lot of people would suspect. It's not one that gets a ton of attention, but I think there's a lot there to talk about. I'll say what it is at the end of the show. Taylor, don't let me forget.
Okay.
Okay, it's not going to be Aquil. So I'll say that much. But also just a little bit of quick housekeeping, per usual. I need to give a big thank you and shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters who keep the show going. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Dot, Geek Filter, Quark Spar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Benjinium, Arthur Lamoureux, our associate producer Chris Garris, Dave Farabee, Dave A. Gregory, Ulysses the Pagan, and our anonymous supporters. And I'm also going to announce right now what our monthly Patreon watch party is going to be in April. We do one of these every month. And the next one is scheduled for Saturday, April 19th. We are going to be hanging out with the patrons in the Tex-Trek Discord, watching a double feature, actually. We're going to watch 2 episodes of Star Trek. We're going to do the TOS episode, Balance of Terror, And we're going to follow that up with the Strange New Worlds episode, Equality of Mercy. That season 1 finale that kind of remakes Balance of Terror, but if Pike had stayed on board the Enterprise as captain. So I don't think I've ever sat down and like actually watched those back to back, except I might have done that like one time back when Equality of Mercy came out. So I think it'll be fun to revisit and watch that way.
There's some interesting things visually. It's like oh, that's the thing that's in TOS, but it's upside down in like I don't know if they did it on purpose or what, but there's a couple things like set pieces that just got flipped.
Yeah, it's also like some of the lines of dialogue go to different characters. Like some of the things that the jerk Styles, who was racist against Vulcans and Romulans, some of his lines go to Ortega's, and some interesting choices like that. But yeah, I think that'll be a fun one or a fun double feature to watch. So that's going to be open to all of the Tex-Trek Patreon supporters. You can come into the Patreon as little as $2 a month. That will get you into the monthly watch parties. And if you can afford to be more generous, there are some additional perks as well. Like if you can support on the bridge crew level or higher at $6 a month, we will do additional watch parties for your birthday. So anyone who has an April birthday, let me know, and we'll do some extra watch parties. We're doing those a little different now. Those are going to be open to the public, but I don't know if anyone else has. I have a birthday in April, and Taylor has a birthday in April, so we might just do some bonus streams for that. But I know there's a lot of birthdays in May, so please check out the Tex-Trek Patreon and help if you can. We do appreciate
stream every
it.
day in May.
I mean, I think last year we had four birthday watch parties, so a lot of Trekkies have May birthdays, it would seem. Also, what happens in May this year, though, the last weekend of May / first weekend of June, but the May 30th through June 1st is the Long Island Trek Convention. So Taylor and I are both going to be there, and I'm looking forward. It'll actually be my first time in New York, so that's exciting. But you looking forward to that convention? Please. Let us know if you're going to be there, and keep an eye out for us. And please, we'd love to talk to you and meet you in person.
You're going to do the set tour?
We're renting a car, and we're going to drive up to Ticonderoga, which I think is like a 5 or 6 hour drive. I was talking to Sean Farrick about that, and he said that he's made that drive, and it is a hell of a long drive, but it's certainly worth it. I've seen enough pictures from those set tours that.
I think because it's New York, in my brain is like New York is small compared to the West Coast. I'm like 6 hours. Like it takes me 2.5 hours to get to San Diego or something like that. It's like that is weird geography.
Yeah, I mean, like in Texas, it's like you can drive from Houston to El Paso, and that takes like
13 hours,
almost,
I think, or 14.
Yeah, like over half a day. So. Whereas, like in Europe,
you're still not out of the state.
Yeah, Europe, you can go through like 5 countries like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not deterred by a 5 hour drive. I don't think that's anything.
Yeah, no, it'll be worth it. We're looking forward to that. So
sounds like fun. Take pictures.
Yeah, hopefully you'll see a lot of pictures posted of us playing dress up on the TOS sets, basically. So
it's gonna be fun.
But I don't really have any other news, so we can go ahead and get started on Blink of an Eye. I'm going to quickly recap the episode by reading the synopsis I pulled off of Memory Alpha and then kind of expand on that with spoilers. But the synopsis reads, over time and generations, a world tries to uncover the mystery of a strange object in the sky. So basically
the greatest descriptions.
Yeah, it's all from like the planet's perspective, and it doesn't even sound like an episode of like Star Trek Voyager. But yeah, Voyager is stuck at a planet that is on like fast forward. It moves at a faster time scale, so Voyager can observe centuries go by on this planet, but they're stuck in orbit, so the people on the planet are just watching over the centuries the ship that's like stuck there hovering, and they're also having a lot of earthquakes caused by Voyager's presence. And eventually they are able to communicate with these people. We see some very intrepid spirits make the journey up to the skyship, and we meet this astronaut from the planet, and are eventually able to, despite the barrier of this, lapse in time, these different time factors, and the Prime Directive and all of that playing a part of it, but they're able to communicate and come to an understanding and free Voyager from its trapped status in orbit of the planet, and Voyager can continue on its journey home. But a very heartfelt episode, I think a lot of people would say. There's a lot of heart that goes into the characters presented here. Aaron, if you'd like, as our guest this week, just go ahead and give us kind of your broad thoughts on the episode before we get into the episode breakdown. But tell us, what do you think about this episode overall?
I really liked this episode. It took high concept science fiction and married it with Star Trek in a way that really seemed to work. You had and the episode itself was sort of a whole, everybody got to participate. You had, it was no one character focus. That was kind of cool. You had the montage of all the different parts of the ship working. It may have been the best Chakotay episode possibly, just because he was not annoying, and he actually had things to add to the conversation that actually helped. But yeah, no, I really loved it. I like the whole idea of observing kind of like Civilizations, the video game kind of thing. We get to watch it grow and just the different, they're in the 1930s deco sort of look and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed all the visual of the different time periods as well.
Yeah,
and like you said, lots of heart too. Just the conversation with Katana Retz and Janeway is just really like, I'm gonna cry now.
Yeah.
I know Taylor has some feelings about that moment, but for me, like, this episode, I think is a great example of Voyager at its best. I think the Voyager is really at its strongest when they can take a cool sci-fi concept and just explore it for 45 minutes. And that was kind of like the cool thing when Voyager and Deep Space Nine were both on the air at the same time. They overlapped for 5 seasons of TV. And our friend Sam at Trek Yards, I've heard him mention this a couple of times, and I agree with it. But he said that, on Deep Space Nine, you had like these character-driven arcs, these very like long-form arcs that were kind of about following the characters. And Voyager was much more of like, let's just do like a different sci-fi concept every week. And I think that is kind of a good way of kind of, comparing the two of them. And but the reason why I think people love this episode so much is in these little snippets that we see, like the short little scenes of just like the medieval time on the planet when we see the Protector and his teacher, writing the letter to the weird mysterious object. Yeah, in English for some reason. But you get so much character, just like that little bit of screen time. Like those guys they have presence, they're memorable. Like the science bros we see in the observatory when it gets to like the early 20th century period. It's even though those characters who don't have like a ton of screen time, but they have enough presence and personality that you really kind of get attached to this planet. You can kind of experience that thing that Chakotay is getting, like, oh, this is kind of a cool opportunity just to see this civilization evolve and study it. So but also it so much embodies the values of Star Trek as far as like science and diplomacy and exploration and those concepts that are normally presented in Star Trek through Starfleet. Instead, it's like Starfleet observing those on a I don't know what to call, like that fast track, not like a micro, on an accelerated, on like an accelerated observation of it. But Taylor, give us your opening statement. What do you think about Blink of an Eye?
Well, I feel like you both covered it pretty well. I agree with both of you that the science problem is so good for this episode. It makes it so interesting, and it mixes really well with like that the civilization, like humanity, empathy, that it just marries science and like humanity so well in this episode. This one is definitely a tearjerker for me. I cry every time I see it. for the ready room scene with Janeway and Gotana Retz, and also the ending. Like it's like a stab to the heart at the end, like in a good way. But I love the pacing of this episode. I love having that. I love having that like anchored landscape that we always return to, where we're seeing where the civilization is growing and where the people that we're visiting, like in the planet scenes, that it's always the same place. And I think that is really cool to like revisit, and you can really see like the growth and see, you know, not just in their wardrobe and not just in like the characters changing, you know, but also just the architecture that's around them. And it's cool to have like that altar space that's always there, even though it's not always an altar. Like it's so cool to have that anchor. And yeah, I think that a lot of the Voyager cast is excellent in this episode. I love Chakotay in this, and I don't love Chakotay typically. So I think like he's like so cool in this episode because he's finally getting to do like science things, and he's getting to nerd out, and he's excited. And I love to see that side of him. And I think that EMH, yeah, I agree. And I think that EMH has a fun side plot, and I love a lot of Seven's dialogue, especially with Naomi and Gotana Retz in this. I think she has a lot of cool, kind of like comforting dialogue for both of them. And I think it's really cool to see her kind of in a mentor role because she's so often depicted as a mentee. But yeah, I love this episode. It's really good.
Yeah, and Taylor, that just makes me think, oh, look, we're seeing a future captain of the Enterprise show their leadership potential in those supportive moments.
Yeah.
So.
It's kind of funny to think that.
Yeah, it's so weird watching Voyager now with Seven's end game, no pun intended, like in mind. But
I was watching, what is it, Night? I think it was, where they're in the holodeck with Tom and Seven when things go wrong, and like the ship kind of half shuts down or whatever. But he invited her in to play Captain Proton, like she's gonna do this. It's like, you know, it's like your job is to disarm the robot, and just like the robot comes out and she goes, "I am Borg," and just opens up the front and pulls out the robot has been neutralized. May I leave now?
Yeah, she was over it.
Seeing that, like, oh, you're the future captain of the Enterprise, which is just kind of funny to think that.
Thank you so much in the live audience to Chris Garris for the $25 super chat. Thanks, Chris. We really appreciate it. He says, "Here's some gas money for your future trips."
Nice.
Thanks, Chris.
But we can go ahead and get in
6 feet. No. What things cost there?
It's like dilithium in the burn and Discovery. We can go ahead and get into our episode breakdown, starting with Voyager's arrival at the planet. Like, this episode, hits the ground running pretty quick. We get into the concept of the episode like almost immediately with the ship pulling up on the unusual looking planet. It kind of has like a donut look to it. We learn it's because it has like a tachyon core, which I guess whenever you need things to be timey-wimey in Star Trek, just say it's tachyons doing it. But their arrival and their capture in the tachyon field, but it immediately lights up the night sky on this planet with another star, and also starts causing these seismic quakes. So that hillside that Taylor has mentioned, the first time we see it, it's what I would call kind of caveman looking, but what would be, more primitive compared to what we later see on this planet. But it's fun to see kind of the superstitions develop here. There's a dude who is building an altar to one of their gods, Tahal, and he was going to offer the fire fruit, as they called it. Although there's some regular earth, dragon fruit's what it's called, right? Like on screen. And
maybe. Is it the little ones?
The yellow ones. But I think the yellow one is like a dragon fruit variant. Yeah. Usually
whenever they call it the fire fruit, they have like this red thing, but like whatever fruit it is, but they're like,
which is kind of cool because in Europe in the 1700s, I think it was, like there was this kind of thought that tomatoes were deadly because people who were like high society would eat them and die, but it was because their plates were actually made out of this metal that they were ingesting. So for the longest time, people would not eat tomatoes because they thought they were deadly.
Yeah, there was like some dude had to prove they were like non-toxic. He's like, watch, I
Yeah.
can eat like 10 of these and not die.
The
It's
plant
actually like
itself is
lead.
toxic though if you eat it. If you yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so it's funny to see how like these superstitions could develop about like, oh, we're never allowed to eat this fire
Yeah.
fruit again because like the new god doesn't like us offering it to the old god.
And the ideas that people come up with to justify certain things that happen that have no connection to anything. It's like that feels really familiar too.
Yeah, and how they can stick around for decades or even centuries. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Is like right off the bat, like the first scene, like this episode is already having fun with the concept of this
Yeah.
planet moving on a faster time scale. And I like the dialogue too when like the one priest guy is like ground shaker, light bringer, take the stay and every day accept our offering, but he's just like all these rules he's coming up with. He's just making shit up on the spot. Like, oh, clearly, that's like that like old school kind of like Greek version of science where you're just like, does that sound rational? Does it sound logical? Then like, okay, we don't have to test it. No scientific method. Let's just run with this for centuries. But they're unable to escape the planet because their warp drive is offline, and the warp core is not going to work under these conditions. Basically, like bad weather around the planet. Taylor, you're also mentioning Chakotay in this episode. He's pretty excited immediately from like that anthropology. How do you say that word?
Yeah,
Anthropology.
anthropological.
Anthropological. However the hell you say it, but the anthropology standpoint of like, oh yeah, we can like observe these civilizations, and so he's pretty like gung-ho from the beginning.
Can you go back one
Yeah.
frame? Just real quick. I want to know what that weird Borg thing is. Like I've never seen that before. I don't know why if my brain has just edited it out or whatever, but when it was freeze framed and something I took, I was like, wait, what is that?
Yeah,
Very
it looks like Borg tech in astrometrics, which maybe that is what it was supposed to be, or maybe they just needed something to like cover up that hole when they were dressing the set.
When we get to the point we're talking about the planet, I have some background information that Larry Nemechek, who, if you haven't seen his Portal 47, you can, I think it's like $33 a month, and they do tons of just background actors and people behind the scenes, and sometimes really big actors that, kind of per month you get to listen in on a like a Zoom call kind of a thing. So I just thought I'd throw that out there because this information came from him. So
Yeah, Larry he's our guardian of forever, kind of. He has the big rock donut portal that just has all of the history laid out. So
this is kind of a donut too. That sort of
yeah, like our
Donut is
planet
time
here.
travel.
By the way, we never get a name for this.
No.
The closest thing we get to a name for this planet is when Naomi Wildman in Seven of Nine come up with their name for it. So, but you have any other thoughts on the opening, or should we jump to the next gap in time to the scribe and the protector?
I really loved having the visual in this episode of Voyager appearing as like the star in the sky. I wasn't expecting it. Even on the rewatch, I forgot that happened, and I was like, "Wow, this is so cool!" And then it's just planting that seed for that full circle moment for the ending. But I really thought that was a really cool scene to have someone witness it be born. And yeah, it's just surprisingly bright, and it just looks like a regular, thing orbiting in the sky. So I think that's really neat.
And it bookends with the end of the episode as kind of unusual that like all this important stuff happens on the same hillside. Like this is where like they decreed no more fire fruit for the people, and this is where the protector is going to launch his hot air balloon, and this is where the astronaut who actually eventually goes to the sky ship will see it depart the system. Like it all happens on the same hillside, but it's so poetic and beautiful that oh yeah, how could you not do it this way,
And I think it was done so.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that I love how subtle though it was. It wasn't like a big boom or anything. Like it was just kind of like an appearance of the star of Voyager. So I think it was really neat. Okay, sorry. Continue.
No, it's okay. I just said the landscape here is based off of who is the matte painting artist. Dan Curry. He basically took pictures of Ireland that he had taken on vacation and used them as the basis for this painting, and had it it grow over time.
That's cool. I
That's
didn't know
cool.
that. But yeah, most beautiful country in the world, so I approve. I'm a little biased, but
But looking at the rock too, just like, okay, I can kind of see that. It's got that little
Yeah.
the,
The like
the
layered
color.
rock look. Yeah.
Yeah.
and super hilly.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, after they decide to launch a probe, we cut back to the planet, and now we're in. These days, when I think of this episode, I think of this as like the Game of Thrones time period. But yes, it's very medieval. But yeah, I could just, if anyone out there has seen or read Game of Thrones, then like, oh yeah, the old teacher, like he's like a maester, like the old wise men in Game of Thrones, and this protector guy. But like you only
He's
get a
wearing the
few
finger on his.
yeah, like the hand of the king thing.
Yeah.
But you only get like a few minutes of screen time with him, but like immediately you're like, okay, like this guy is a politician and he's trying to, make sure that he presents himself as like a strong leader, and then like this guy is kind of wiser. Like when he has to like correct him on some of the language,
Yeah.
like, do you really want to say demand? And he changes, okay, like how about would hope? Does that sound better? But they have like a fun chemistry, and but it's also cool just to be like, oh, we've skipped forward to a more advanced time period. They're like developing hot air balloons. This kind of sounds like actual, maybe more Renaissance than medieval times. So when people
It's
started
in
to do like,
between.
yeah, like Leonardo da Vinci, another Voyager touchstone.
I was gonna say this is sort of like Da Vinci Merlin or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can also see it in the architecture. It has more early Renaissance because it has buttressing and stuff with the stone buildings. So that would be more leaning into the Renaissance side over medieval. There you go. You can see in the image on the screen there, there's like a triangle that comes off of the cylinder of the building, and that would be the buttress. And
What's
also
cool is
in
that
the
they're
wardrobe.
really thick and big, like for their earthquakes. Like it
Yeah.
feels larger than it would normally.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
like-
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but like their castles, they're not very like tall towers. They're kind
Right.
of squat and more you'd think more like supported for earthquake
Yeah.
Yep.
or I guess it would ground shakes, I think is what they call it. It's like,
Yeah.
is it really an earthquake if it's not on Earth? Although they still have English letters, English
Well,
written
they
language
call
on this
it
planet.
they say
The
Earth at
ground
some point.
shaker.
Yeah.
They say the ground shaker a lot. So
Yeah,
guess
I
we
think they
can call
say
them
ground shakes.
Ground shakes. Yeah.
But it's kind of a fun. There's our English writing. It's kind of a fun transition when they launch the hot air balloon, and then it cuts to the Voyager probe that has been in orbit of the planet. It spends 200 years from like the probe's perspective in orbit. That's when Chakotay and B'Elanna have like that conversation about observing this planet, and that kind of conversation about like, well, maybe they won't beat each other up so much. It's like maybe they won't follow like the Klingon model, and B'Elanna's like, well, maybe they won't follow the human model. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like unlike the humans.
Yeah. I like her comment too, where he's like, oh, we might miss the rise and fall of the Empire. And she's like, so we'll see the next one.
Yeah.
And that made me think too, is like, how many times has this planet already gone through this cycle? Like, is this like the first time that we've seen like that this planet has had life, and like they've done the caveman thing, they've done the medieval time, they've done the Renaissance time, and already become smart enough, and then like wipe each other out, and then do they start over? Like how many times does that really cycle through? Or is
Yeah,
this
they
the
just-
only
And like, did
time?
Voyager actually stop that cycle because they
Right.
it inspired them to go beyond their little world?
Their little
basically.
world, right? And so I wonder, like, if this is because it just seems kind of really convenient that Voyager would stop there right whenever it's like caveman time, so they get to see the whole like development. So that makes me think that there has been multiple developments over time, and this is like the first one, like you said, that could be breaking that cycle.
Yeah, that's kind of true of like any planet you go to, though. It's like, oh, it's strange that you got here at like the point where like people were like evolved on the. Because if you look at like
Yeah.
the Earth's history, it's what like 6 billion years old, I think, and humans have only been around for like 100,000 or 200,000 years, in like our modern evolved state. So,
But this
yeah,
universe, since we know that there's a race that actually seeded the entire known galaxy, so it's like, okay, they all kind of evolved at the same time, roughly.
Yeah, except on this planet, it's a thing I'd be interested is to be like, if we ever came back here, would they be like even more advanced than the
Yeah.
Federation, maybe? Because it's like, oh, we've had so many years to like study
Yeah.
everything. We've
Right.
unlocked all the scientific secrets.
Or if they've destroyed their planet and then it's in like rehab state and then they're like salamanders crawling out of the ocean again, you know?
Or they're doing like terraforming type of engineering where they're trying to slow the planet down so they can
Yeah.
go into like the time frame that everybody else is in or something like that. Just
Yeah,
do it
that's
over
really
over
cool.
the millennials or something like that. Millennials.
It's a very
Yeah.
lonely thing, though, to think of like this planet that like they
Yeah.
move on a different speed than the rest of the gal. Like they're always gonna have like this incredible communication barrier. But I guess this is probably the first time that anyone's like developed roads and stuff. Because like in the conversation between Chakotay and B'Elanna, they're like, "Oh, look, there's like a network of roads, and they have combustion engines now." So that seemed to be like a new development down there. But
But if it was millions of years, the roads would probably have disappeared and the air could have healed itself from all the carbon monoxide.
Yeah. They also bring up that the planet is using more iron than expected at their, at that
right,
specific time frame that they're
Yeah.
looking at. And they're like, "Oh, it's because of the seismic activity that we're creating, that they're having to like anchor down and like force them to come up with solutions faster than we would expect in our normal like projections for development."
right. So that's how they start to sneak in the Prime Directive side of things. This is a Prime Directive episode because just Voyager's presence in orbit has already caused them to change the way that they develop architecture and using more iron in their buildings. So just being there without communicating, they're already having a big impact on the entire planet.
I always thought it'd be interesting if they did something. What if a planet is never going to develop warp technology, but they, like Taylor was saying, like they become this super advanced society? Like, how do you just like, oh, sorry, they can't fly, so we're not going to talk to them? Like that just seems weird.
Yeah, I mean, if you were ever going to explore that concept, this might be an interesting place to do it because warp drive isn't really going to help you much if you have a hard time leaving your
Your time
planet.
frame.
It's like they can only leave their planet for a few minutes by the end of it without having issues adjusting
Yeah.
to the rest of the universe's time speed. So you're probably not going to put a lot of effort into faster than light travel. You'd probably be studying those temporal effects and trying to develop that a way to compensate for that instead.
Maybe time travel. They can go back in time
Yeah.
to. They could go out, come back, and yeah, I don't know. Interesting.
But the
Oh, that's
the
cool.
the next development on the hillside is the observatory. So, Aaron, you were talking about this being very like Art Deco looking.
A little combination between like kind of War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells kind of feel, the Art Deco. You got a little bit of what is it, the Disney Sea in Japan? I think it's all the Nautilus and that sort of like steampunk sort of look.
Yeah, steampunk. That's the word I was trying to think. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's like it's after the
kind of mushing
Industrial
those all together.
Revolution, but before World War II type
Yeah,
era.
it'd be interesting by this point when they're actually seeing the ship, they're probably thinking, okay, they can't live in a sealed environment forever. Like, how do they get food and water? Like, maybe they're all dead in there or something. Like, I think they said that at one point. Because that would be my thing. It's like, if you've been here for centuries, well, how do you get your food and water and air?
Right.
Or
Right.
is it
Like
a
we know
robot?
we know that you've been here. Our ancestors have been writing about you for centuries. But yeah, like you haven't gone anywhere. So yeah, I would assume that all on board would be dead probably. But the
Yeah.
conversation we get between the two scientists, that they talk about that how there's it's become like a pop cultural thing. There's the skyship friends, like kids have like toys of
Action figures.
Yeah.
when I heard that, I just like it's okay. There's got to be like a cartoon or something. Or given like this time period, it's probably more closer to our like Saturday morning serials they used to play in
Or comic
the
books.
theater. Or yeah, maybe it's comics. It's like the golden age of comics was the 1930s and 40s. So, but yeah, there's someone making skyship friend merch.
I also like that he's like, I had all of them, even the duplicates, and in my headcanon, the duplicates are their mirror universe. Like they've created like some sort of like they're these evil duplicates or something. I'm sure
That's
there's
fun.
copies.
I was
But
thinking, I was thinking even
But-
like the variants. You know how like
yeah,
when you can,
playmates. That's what. Yeah, exactly. That's probably what they really meant. But yes,
it's like
I thought that was
a
funny.
lot of toys. It's like in Transformers. There's like you have Starscream and then two other characters that look just like Starscream, so that they can use like the same mold to make all the different toys. You know.
Yep.
Or it could have meant like knockoffs too. That's like a term in the toy collector world for when it's like it's not like the on-brand Cabbage Patch Kids. It's one of the knockoffs, you know. It's not like a real Beanie Baby with like the tie tag.
I will not go off course very much, but I saw a 1980s Twilight Zone with Terry Farrell, where it's the one where she's actually a mannequin. She goes out and lives for a month and comes back, and she has to stay in the mall. But she goes to get a doll, and she was getting a corn husk doll. So it was like a Cabbage Patch doll, but like in a corn husk. It was really funny, this mock-up that they made. Oh, sorry. That was Terry Farrell, so it was kind of cool to see her at a pre Deep Space Nine show.
Yeah, it's always cool to see Terry Farrell. The conversation we get between the two scientists in the observatory, though, they also talk about I think it's interesting that like they made the older scientist. He's the one who's a bit more like romantic about everything, and the younger one is the cynical one. Yeah. But I like his line, "I doubt everything. Remember, even my own doubts." I was like, oh, that's actually a good outlook for a scientist to have.
Yeah. I loved in the scene too that in the previous planetary glimpse that we get, they talk about the Protector talks about there possibly being sky people and people in the sky or whatever. And then it jumps to this scene and they know now that it is a ship in orbit and not like a star or a god or whatever. So I think that was a really cool tie-in from the last glimpse to this one, where it's like, oh wow, like they've made like a huge discovery.
It's nice.
Yeah, but like now they have telescopes, they can see it, and it's like, oh yeah, that looks like a ship. That looks like metal parts, riveted together. It's like that part looks like it might be glowing. It's aerodynamic, kinda.
So what's interesting about this? One of the background pieces of information that I got was that this is basically geosynchronous orbit. But if it is, looking out the window from Voyager, it should just be a blur of stars because they're locked in place with the planet. Otherwise, it would be like just a ring around the planet. It's like, and they got to the point where it's just like, okay, we just have to make it where it looks good because if we go into this in depth into how accurate it's supposed to be, it's like this is just not going to be fun. They sacrificed that for the realism for just making it make more sense for the audience.
I had never thought about that, but yeah, totally. If it's geosynchronous, because one second on this planet is the equivalent of a day. So every single second, the planet would rotate all the way or revolve. Rotate. It would rotate all the way around. So yeah, Voyager would be hauling ass if it's locked in the same geosynchronous spot. Oh, that would have been hard to explain. That would have been hard to visualize.
It's kind of an interesting science problem too, because it's kind of like the three-body problem because it's become the third pole. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with that book, but that's kind of a fun thing to think about in terms of like the chaos of that kind of scientific issue, and kind of seeing like a lower scale in this episode. You know, in this it's just like seismic activity, but it's interesting to see like that third, just like having something intrusive that shouldn't be there that is creating all this distortion and stuff. But yeah, I think it's really cool that we now know that the planet people know that it's a ship and they have like more solid science to go on. I think it's just such a great natural projection, like in their glimpses on the planet. Like I just really enjoy all of these little snippets, you know?
I'm not familiar with the three-body problem, but yeah, this is definitely the three-pole problem. I started reading it,
and then I kind of got all, like, I had the real-life problems, which is I did not have time to finish it. I need to go back to it. It was interesting.
Yeah, those books are really thick, but...
Oh, another thing I wanted to point out in this set, in the seismic activity scene that we get in this, they have handles like all over the room for people to hold on to during
Oh
seismic
yeah,
activity. I
that's
think that's
good. I
really
never noticed
cool.
that before.
That they're like,
Nice.
oh, it's shaking, like everyone grab hold, and they
Mm.
have like, if you can see in this episode, they kind of like have these like really long skinny bars along all of the walls, and that's where they
Right,
grab hold
right.
of.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I'm
that was
looking at
really
that
cool.
now. I never noticed that before either, Taylor. Yeah, like and like we watched this episode like 4 times this week preparing for the show, and I never noticed the hand. What do they call them in Prodigy? The hold on to your butts, grab handles or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what these are.
My guess
Yeah,
is those
exactly.
are sideways towel bars that they're like
Yeah, totally.
stuck in
It's
there.
exactly what they look like.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
cool.
That's definitely what they used, but yeah, that's good world building and subtle
Yeah,
too. You know, just like
Yeah.
literally background details.
That
yeah,
see, like I'm still seeing things. Well, you saw something, so I didn't see it.
yeah. What's the
But
same with like
learning,
the same with like the buttressing and the medieval, and you talking about it being more squat, you know, and like
yeah,
closer to the
Mm-hmm.
ground and like thicker to like withstand that. Like it's such a great, like whoever is coming up with these, I don't know who did all the background sets in this, but incredible research and, you know, very sincere
yeah,
thought went into this.
The transmission that the older science gentleman gives to Voyager, I wrote it down here, but he says, "Good friends in the skyship, I call you that hoping at least you're not enemies. There's nothing on our world that resembles your technology, so we assume you came here from a nearby planet or a distant star. Our ancient mythology describes your arrival centuries ago, coinciding with the tremors that continually shake our planet and destroy so many of our accomplishments. I hope that was never your intention, but the result is the same. Respond if you can, or if you wish, come down from your skyship and visit us." So when they receive that message on Voyager, it triggers an immediate Prime Directive crisis. I think it's funny when you see Janeway in the briefing room scene after that. She looks frustrated. She is like, "Oh shit, this is gonna be a Prime Directive episode, isn't it?"
in the original script, Neelix was in here and he was doing most of Tom's lines, which was interesting.
Hmm.
That is interesting to me because he's only briefly in this episode, and a moment we'll talk
Yeah,
about soon. But I was thinking like, oh, it was odd to omit Neelix from the briefing room scene. This would have been like a great
yeah. There you
place to
go.
give him some dialogue. I think it might have made a little bit more sense too if Neelix is the one who's sympathetic to the planet, because like Tom
Yeah,
during this briefing, Tom is the first one who's like, "Hey, well, we got to say something to these guys, right? We got to let them know we're
Yeah.
not doing this on purpose. We got to
yeah.
explain ourselves." But then later, he's a bit more like, "Oh, is it time to shoot back at these people now?" So he's kind of it stood
He's
out
going
to
back
me.
and forth.
He's inconsistent, so I would
Yeah,
have preferred that actually if they gave these lines to Neil. But I do like
yeah.
Tom kind of feeling
It
sorry
feels
for
like a
them.
Tom. If it was going to be anybody in that room, it's probably Tom.
Yeah,
He's sort of the avatar for us sometimes.
yeah. No,
I did like the
he's
tech. Oh, sorry.
but he's definitely like the guy who like misses the 20th century. I find very relatable.
Yeah. I like the technician guy on the surface before they send the well made speech, but he's like, what am I going to say? It's like, glad to meet you. Where are you from? Please stop shaking our planet.
Yeah, it's a good line.
I felt very relatable.
Yeah, that'd be very direct and to the point.
And they have the
Uh,
same prime constances and other stuff that we put on the Voyager plate. Basically, they were shooting up it to the ship.
but the kind of almost morbid aspect of this, and kind of the lonely planet thing, when the doctor points out like this dude that we're debating, do we respond to this or not? He's been dead for a century by this point.
Yeah.
In the time that it took us to walk into this room and sit down.
Yeah. So like Voyager isn't here too long. I think it's only here for like a couple days maybe. For this many centuries to go by. It wouldn't take that long if every minute is 2 months basically. The years would add up pretty quick.
Definitely. I think that's slightly inconsistent as well, depending on who you hear say, how long they were at a certain location or how long the probe's been operating. I don't know, somebody had written down the inconsistencies.
Yeah, I think at one moment they say like 10 minutes was equal to 3 years when the doctor is stranded.
Yeah. I don't know why when he said years and B'Elanna's like, years? Like, why are you surprised? I mean, she should, of all of the people, like, she should kind of have clocked that.
Yeah, come on, B'Elanna, you're an engineer. You know how to do math.
Yeah.
But it's fun use of the doctor and his they get a lot of fun use out of the hologram mobile emitter and stuff. It's like, oh, you're the perfect candidate for this away mission. So and it also gets him out of his comfort zone a little bit. But yeah, they decide to send the doctor down, and I liked his concern about oh, what if they all look like big purple blobs? Because they tell him like, here, I'll modify your mobile emitter. It'll just make you look like whatever the people look like down there, which is kind of convenient. But then he's like, what if they're big purple blobs? And Janeway says, then you'll be the best looking big purple blob on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun line.
Would have been interesting.
That's
That's
how
how
you-
scary for the blobs if they see him like that first. Sort of like, then he mutates into the blob.
Oh yeah, it'd be like, oh, we're invaded by space creatures from the sky ship.
It'd be like seeing us have blobs come down and then turn into people.
Yeah, don't worry, EMH. It's just going to be a lacrosse stick on your forehead. So
Yeah.
nothing
I had a
crazy.
friend watching this who isn't a huge Star Trek fan. They're like, isn't this Cardassian? I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of looks like it a little bit.
Yeah, they kind of have like that spoon forehead thing going. A much simpler version of it.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I
One
actually
of them
thought
is
it was
different, but not
funny.
Too different.
I thought it was funny in the ready room scene when Tuvok is like really preaching the Prime Directive and stuff. And I was just kind of thinking like we're way past that because they've seen Voyager in the sky for centuries, you know. So I feel like does it even count as like, I guess the first contact, like actually the actual contact part, but they already kind of know. So I feel like
Right.
this is like a weird, loophole of the Prime
Right, like
Directive.
it's no longer even an option to try to avoid contamination. Like you're past the point of no return. The culture has been contaminated with
Yeah.
knowledge of life beyond their planet. Like
And they made first contact. Technically, they reached out first. So what do you do then?
It's kind of like Taylor. Do you remember the TNG episode Pen Pals when
Yeah.
when Data's pen pal little kid friend sent that message to the Enterprise? It's very similar to that, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
It'd be interesting to see a society that's actively looking for aliens and not scared of, not a xenophobic race or something like that. But they don't have warp drive. Like if they contacted a ship or something, where is that Prime Directive rule in there? It's like so weird.
But
They know we exist. They found us, but we can't talk to them.
the dudes in the observatory in this episode, they did make me think a lot about like Earth stuff. Like I know there's SETI is the search for extraterrestrial life, and then what's the other one? There's one where we're like sending out communications, and then the other one is like we're listening for communications.
I don't. Is it the
I
one
forgot-
that's crowdsourced?
I forgot what they're called, but anyways, I know neither one has had any luck, but it's kind of like that.
They're all just avoiding us right now.
Yeah, the Janeways, the doctor's botched transporter incident, leaving him to be stuck on the planet for longer than intended. It was supposed to be 2 or 3 days, turned out to be 2 or 3 years. But I like that Chakotay had something else useful to do. You know what? I take it back. So okay, this is how they should have put Neelix in the episode more. Instead of Chakotay being the one who comes up with the idea of like, oh, look for like, art centers, opera houses, stuff like that. That could have been a good Neelix moment.
Yeah.
But he's basically he's in the artsy part of the planet.
The Eastern Lake.
They
Yeah.
established
For sure,
there's
yeah.
this kind of like this capital city. So I guess it's like whatever is like the most like prominent city at the time. Depending on Earth history, you could debate where that, like at some point it probably would have been like Rome or London or
New York.
even though when we see the planet on some screens, on some graphics in the episode, the coastline looks a lot like Southern California. But
Well, yeah, that's essentially the San Andreas fault.
so the doctor beamed down to the like Hollywood area of this planet.
Yeah, looking at the map around it, it looks close to sort of just south of here, more in the like above Long Beach, before Santa Monica, kind of like an in-between area.
Okay, the live chat helped us out. Cake is eternal and is
Medi.
pointing out Medi is the other. So that's the messaging. So and
Okay.
Starfleet Sohel is mentioning SETI. SETI is the one that is searching, and Medi is the one messaging. So that's the difference.
That's kind of connected to, they have the thing where they're searching for like Earth-type planets and stuff like that, going through the data. It's like if you're basically sharing the processing power with your computer.
Yeah, the Goldilocks zone planets that might support life. But that's the cool thing in this episode, is seeing like these people that are so fascinated with the skyship and stuff from a very grounded and more relatable perspective than we typically get in Star Trek. It really feels like those real life exploration types of things, or like the astronaut stuff that we're about to get to, very much kind of parallels real life space travel more so than normal Star Trek. So it's odd that the aliens in this episode, in a lot of ways, they're more relatable than our main Voyager characters that we're used to.
It's kind of interesting. The skyship, in some ways, is like Star Trek is for a lot of people. It's like we're striving and like trying to do science, basically because we're inspired by Star Trek. So it's sort of like a similar kind of effect.
Yeah, I mean, like you just go to NASA and talk to anyone who works there, and they all seem to be Trekkies. So,
Even in, what is it? The For All Mankind, they have a character who's a Trekkie too.
Yeah, they're even Trekkies in an alternate timeline. So. What did y'all think of when the doctor beams back up and we find out like, oh, it sounds like he had like a family on this planet.
Yeah. I love his hug. Just it's like whoa.
Yeah, it's very aggressive.
Yeah, Janeway is like, I just beamed you down a few minutes ago, and he's like, I haven't seen you in years. I didn't know if I'd ever see you again. But
I like the part where he says, "Well, I knew you didn't leave me because there you were, brightest star in the sky." So I thought that was really cool to like, he had hope still. Like he was like, well, I guess I'll just wait and have a family and go to the opera and, contribute to their cultural center and like just kind of have my own little thing waiting to be beamed out. But I think this is kind of really sad because, he didn't get to say goodbye, I'm sure. Like he's just vanished.
One day they just
trace
disappeared.
for his family. Yeah. So it's pretty disturbing. That would be heartbreaking for him and also
when you
his
think
family.
about all these different things where they, the guy never knew that Voyager actually got his message. Like he doesn't know, his son won't know that he didn't just walk out on them or something like that. There's all these little broken stories just because of the time differential. And it's just kind of sad.
It is.
No, there's a lot of melancholy stuff in this episode when you sit and think about it a bit with that. Yeah. Like did his quote unquote roommate Maritza, I think. Maritza. Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds like a wine or something.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking.
Maritza.
I'm gonna have a Maritza.
Did he warn her like, okay, honey, someday I might just vanish, and it's because I'm going back to the skyship, and I don't know when that's going to happen, but it could happen at any moment, and then I'm just gone out of your life forever.
Well,
Judging
it depends
by
if
the unknown text, it sounds like he did not tell her that. So
that's what
when
I
we
was
get
thinking.
to that point, I can. Yeah.
I was thinking that because of the Prime Directive, because Janeway was like threatening him. She was like, "You are not to do anything."
Because she basically, when he's talking further down the blind, it's like, please tell them about me. I could never tell them. I could never be truthful to his mother. The Prime Directive and all that. It's my only regret. So he basically did not get to tell them. I don't think.
That's a
That's so
big
sad.
like. Couldn't he have like written like a will and just like, okay, after I've been like
Oh.
declared dead after missing for 5 years, y'all can read
But
this.
that's still breaking the Prime Directive. Though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I would have broke it just if it was only like for their eyes only. Whoever has
Or you just say I'm from the sky ship, and they'll be like, "Oh, okay, what really happened?" Because nobody's gonna believe that he actually.
yeah,
came from
maybe
the
he
sky ship.
tried. Maybe he tried to tell her at some point, and she didn't believe him. And he was like, "You know what? I'm not going to waste my time arguing with you. Fine, just don't believe me, and you'll never know my fate."
Yeah. Kind of like Picard in not Half a Life, the flute episode. That I can't remember the name of. Right
The Inner Light.
The Inner Light. Thank you. Half a Life, Inner Light, close. Because he was always like, I was a captain on a starship, and they're like, sure, honey.
And so I assumed that like the kid Jason, like I assumed like his roommate was pregnant or something, and then he is like, okay, well I will raise this kid for like the first 3 years of his life, and then I'm out. But like I get to name him. I'm gonna give him this Earth name Jason for some reason. So, y'all have any other thoughts on the Doctor's Away mission?
Yeah, I did love that he comes back and he tells Janeway like how inspiring Voyager is. He's like,
yeah.
we've inspired them to help communicate and to invent and have all these insane innovations in science and art and religion. And like he's like so peppy. I love because he loves humanity and he's always searching and growing in that aspect too. So for him to like see it happening and like also he is inspired by Voyager and their crew, right? So it's kind of like a parallel for him. Like it's a whole civilization having the same kind of experience as him.
But it's also kind of ominous when he says that there's a space race and there's some geopolitical tension on the planet. And Chakotay had mentioned this earlier with like the 26 different nation states, and now they are rivalry. They have like a rivalry between themselves to see who can reach the skyship first with a rocket. And Janeway asks, "Oh, is it going to be a weapon on a warhead on a missile, or is it going to be like astronauts on a rocket?" And he says, like, "Well, you won't have to wait long to find out because they're getting really close." So
yeah,
they have their own version of For All Mankind, where another state actually got to the skyship first. And
there's like
everything.
There's a whole TV show, but you have to like slow it down to like 0.05 speed to make it watchable. But yeah, the TV shows, it would be easy to binge watch everything on this planet because it would go by in a blink of an eye.
Nice episode title drop.
Yeah, well, Janeway says the title of the episode like pretty early in like that first scene. So
yeah,
they were going to call it Wink of an Eye, and they're just like, oh wait, that's going to get confusing with the original series episode.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I have some thoughts on the episode title that I'll bring up in the Gorn eggs with that. But before we talk about the astronaut mission, let's talk about the cute 7 of 9 and Naomi Wildman scene. Naomi gets more screen time in this episode than Neelix, and it's only one scene. But
it's a great scene.
He doesn't even talk, does he?
No, yeah, Ethan Phillips had to get the Talaxian head glued on to just pour coffee in this episode. But yeah, Naomi and Seven, they collaborate. They come up with this title together. But The Weird Planet Displaced in Time is the name of her essay, her report for school. But like I was saying,
she has this weirdly weird way of saying perfect or something. Like it's a little kid thing.
But that is the closest thing we get to a name for this planet. You'd think like the inhabitants would have like a name they would bring up at some point, but
maybe it just didn't come up. Though, like I would ask them, like if we saw the astronaut, like what do you call your planet?
Yeah. But
well,
speaking, that is true. But speaking of having communication with these people, we get our astronaut mission. Katana Retz and Tarina, astronauts who are on a mission to study the skyship, and they seem pretty determined. It's this isn't like as cautious as like I think I like the United States Apollo program, and it's like, okay, we're just gonna send some dudes up to space and make sure the capsules work. Okay, we're just gonna like go orbit the moon. Okay, like they're so cautious, like testing everything. Here it's like this seems to be like the first mission, and they're like, no, we're just going straight on to the sky ship. The thing that bugs me the most in this episode, it's not the English writing, it's not the Voyager not moving around the planet correctly. The thing that stands out to me as weird that I'm going to complain about is it is extremely easy for the ship to just go find somewhere where they can dock on Voyager and get on board.
That is actually in the notes that I have. It's like they said, though unseen, dialogue implies that the capsule also follows the great mystical constant of the universe, constant of a universal docking hatch. So they knew that was really crazy. But Rick Sternbach designed this, and he made it to look more like the Russian space program, but like this really simplified, cleaned out, like just the things that you need.
Yeah, no bells and whistles. Very
But
very
I just love the idea that it's like we know that there's somehow a magical docking port machine.
But I guess if their mission was to try to board the skyship if possible, maybe they're I don't know. They were prepared for some
That's true.
interesting docking procedures.
Yeah, maybe it's like something that just they had. Well, I'm trying to say Skylab or something had some not exactly the same, but they had a dock between the Soyuz and the Skylab, and there was something that they ended up having to do that was sort of like that because they didn't have the correct specs, or I can't remember, but so.
Although
possible,
to be
but not likely.
To be fair, though, like we don't know how much time they spent. Like maybe they were up there for like 12 hours trying to figure out how to like get inside of a hatch on Voyager. So
That's true.
Like it wouldn't have been much time from their perspective. It's fun to see them walk around on Voyager when everyone's frozen and like the warp core and engineering is not moving.
Yeah, this
That's
is
sort
a
of
really
like
eerie, kind of ominous. Like they enter and everything feels just way too still and quiet. And
Yeah.
like I think about them, entering this ship and just being like, I mean, they do work through it and talk through it and they are like really wild, but I would be scared. I would be like, this is bizarre, you know?
Yeah, but it makes it easier to relate to them coming into what they perceive as like an alien environment. It seems like alien to us too, because like everyone is frozen and
Like maybe it's stasis,
unapproachable.
But why does everybody look like they're moving about, just going about their business?
Yeah, but I do love that they're sciencey. Like they're both scientists, they're astronauts, right? And they work through the problem. Like she touches Balana's hand and is like, "Oh, she's warm," And then they're like, "Oh, is this like a metabolic stasis or is it laws of physics?" And then he is like, "Well, maybe they're just slow," So I think it's really cool to like hear them work through it. I think that was really fun to like see them problem solve.
The thing about like maybe they're just slow, that's a real life concern about if we do make contact with intelligent life on another planet, maybe they communicate 1,000 words in a nanosecond, or maybe it takes them a 1,000 years to say one word, that might be a real life concern with an alien life form.
And like every scientist in Star Trek, they take off their helmets when they really shouldn't have.
Yeah.
What kind of colds and flus and all the regular bacteria of us that like could kill them.
That is always one
Maybe
of my
that's
complaints.
what killed them. It wasn't the time thing. It was just like they got a cold.
Exposure.
Oh yeah. Just to go on a brief tangent, but the other night, Taylor and I watched the Ridley Scott movie Alien Covenant for the first time.
Oh no.
You were complaining in that movie about them taking their helmets
I
off
was
and
so
stuff.
upset. I was like, why the hell would they remove their helmets on a place that they don't know what the pathogens are like? And like, of course, they ended up getting infected by the fungus. And I'm like, well, y'all are dumb as hell because y'all just checked the air breathable quality, but you didn't check anything else. Like, crazy.
That movie nobody like in that you weren't rooting for anybody. Like maybe the alien, but it was just sort of like everybody seems just so dumb.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about that movie is there are so many 47s in it. And I was like, okay, who wrote this? And it was written by John Logan, the writer of Star Trek Nemesis.
Ah.
And he also worked with Ridley Scott on Gladiator, on the first one. I don't know who wrote the second one, but it's like, okay, so that's why he's sneaking the 47s in there. He's a Trekkie at heart. Like, he was a Trekkie before he worked on Nemesis. So
That was at the time that they were talking about doing the comic book crossover between TNG and Aliens too. So maybe that was in his head somewhere.
oh yeah, the Alien crossover that Dark Horse pulled out of or the 20th Century Fox people pulled out
No,
of.
the was actually whoever. What is the director's name? Ridley Scott. Yes. He was basically the one who's like, I don't want to have any other science fiction franchise to compete with this. It's like, I'm glad that they thought that Star Trek would be a possible like ability to like sideswipe them or something. But so they didn't want to have anything distract from the new movie that was coming
Yeah,
out.
that sounds like it.
Sucks.
The big man himself, Ridley Scott. What you gonna do?
Everybody else was really excited to go forward. It sounded like even 20th Century was just like, this would be cool.
Well, we can't get our Alien and Star Trek crossover, but we can get Gaetano Retz and astronaut Tarina crossover with Janeway and Neelix. This is like the one time you see Neelix in the episode. He is frozen pouring coffee for Janeway. But I love that that's his like introduction to Gaetano Retz. Is like, oh, here's a slice of life of this guy Neelix, the Timon and
The
Pumbaa
coffee
looking
giver.
dude. But
Yeah, exactly. He must be their slave.
yeah, they found this annoying alien and put him to work on their ship in the kitchen. No, I like Neelix though. I'm a Neelix defender.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also like kind of dark that this other astronaut, Tarina, like she dies. She like could not
see her
survive
again. Like, she's gone.
Yeah, I don't know what they do with her remains either. That's also kind of morbid to think about. But I
She
guess
had eaten
there's
into space. Empty
yeah,
shell.
one of those burials at space. Taylor always
Yeah.
complains about those when that happens because she's like, they're just cluttering up space with debris.
Yeah, well, they're not going to deteriorate. Like, there's just going to be like little icicles out there for other ships to hit, or like other things and other debris to hit. I don't know. It makes
Space
me
is a
sad.
big place.
That's why you have a deflector shield.
Right. I forgot the name of the second astronaut. What was her name?
Tarina,
Tarina. Sorry. Yeah, I was
like
really sad that she
Saru's
died.
sweetheart, Saru's
Yeah.
wife.
That's why I was like, wait, am I going to say this right if I say Tarina? But I
have a last
really
name?
love in the shuttle when she's encouraging them to go further, and the guy is like, oh, that's on our mission, and she's really encouraging. She's like, well, we're gonna do it if we're here, and she's really like, she's like leading this mission basically, and he's kind of got a little cold feet there. And I was really sad when she died off screen in this, because I was really excited maybe for her to talk to Janeway and like get to meet the starship captain that they've been, coming to visit and like make contact with. And so that made me really sad that we didn't get to see that. But I think
when this first aired, everybody who was watching it with me, we all thought it was going to be him who died. It just seemed like he's the one who's probably, I don't know, because it felt like she was the stronger
Right.
character or something.
He
like
started
that.
Yeah.
feeling the symptoms earlier though when they're exploring the ship. So
Yeah.
for whatever reason, the doctor is able to stabilize him. But I like that the doctor is like, oh yeah, after spending 3 years on their planet, I know their anatomy as well as I know yours, Captain. It's like, okay, yeah, he does have like a medical database in his brain, so that makes sense that he'd be able to treat him. Also, speaking of the doctor and Gaetano Retz, I love like that conversation they have about the life on the planet, about like mountain or lakeside. They're talking about sports. The doctor's all pissed. He's like, "What do you mean mountain has a 5-12 season?" And they're talking about I saw the original Torelius, not his grandson who plays for them now. And then the Taylor, the scene that made you cry every time we watched this episode this week, but.
Yeah, I love this conversation that Gaetano Retz has with Janeway, and I love his little song that he sings. Like sometimes that can be really cringy to me to like have like a small little snippet song, but I think it really works here because it doesn't go on for too long. And I love so much the line, where she's like kind of asking for his help, and she's like, oh, well, I hope you're not disappointed, like coming here to find Voyager. And he's like, how often does your very first dream come true? Of course I'll help you. Every time he says that, I cry. Like it is like so beautiful, and he's just so, he wants, like, I don't know, it's just like a dream. Like it's so, I don't know, it's very riveting for me and very believable, and I just love that interaction so much. And I love then immediately is when it cuts to the EMH and him talking about the sports team, because I needed that comedic relief so hard, because I would have just kept bawling. But like, thank God that they cut to that funny scene, because it just like relief. It's so good.
That conversation reminded me a lot of First Contact in TNG with Marissa Yale, where she's just like, he's like, I don't think you're ready for interstellar life. It's like, I've been ready for this since I've been 9 years old, sitting in that planetarium. Just like it's the same kind of first dream sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, literally his whole life. It's so romantic.
I was when I was prepping for the show last night for background noise. I had some college basketball on, and I heard the commentators talking about, yeah, this kid like told his dad that all his life he wanted to grow up and play basketball for BYU, and I was like, oh, he's like the Gaetano Retz of college basketball, I guess. But yeah, no, that's what I was saying with like these characters that we meet so briefly, but they all have like so much heart that like we can connect to them. Like we can connect to the protector and his teacher on the hillside. You can connect to the scientists in the observatory. You can connect to Gaetano Retz, and when you see him talking about mountain versus lakeside with the doctor, he's like, oh yeah, you really are one of the, it's like, oh yeah, you really are from like that same hometown I'm from. It's like a cool little mutual connection. Yeah, Gaetano Retz is a cool dude, and he very much like embodies the like the Star Trek spirit, the Starfleet spirit. So he's the heart and soul of this episode.
Patch a little closer. Like some of their stuff would be interesting to see what their graphical,
Yeah, I know Aaron wants to see all the graphics.
Well, when you was out of that window, like when they were looking up at the sky ship, it had like markings on the
Yeah, the window looked cool. It was like in the Apollo ships where you had like like when they have to visually aim the ship at their target. Yeah, that looked cool. And actually,
that's not part of their that must be their writing. That's not English.
Yeah, I was about to say like the writing actually looks alien that time. So good job, art department there. Not sure what was going on with the writing on the planet, but
you didn't even have to see the letter really. I mean, they could just been writing and you never looked at the words.
We also mentioned earlier the Gaetano Retz and 7 of 9 scene when he's talking about how difficult it will be for his people to come and explore space and be part of this intergalactic community, and he said like, oh, if Voyager leaves, what if we give up our scientific endeavors? And she's like, maybe you'll actually be inspired to also travel the stars so you can come meet us again.
Yeah, I thought that was such a nice way to encourage him. She's like, he's so worried about their technology stalling. And she's like, yeah, it just says the perfect thing, I think, to pull him back up and, keep him encouraged.
Doesn't she also say like, you're resourceful people, you'll figure it out, basically?
Yeah.
And at this point in time, as they continue to observe the planet with Gaetano Retz on board Voyager, they're developing antimatter technology on the surface. So it sounds like they're getting close to warp drives if they would be able to get into space and get past their weird tachyon filled stuff. But
I was just thinking that how much information that Voyager could give them, because the odds that they have all this information about their entire past probably is not, they're not going to have like satellite pictures and all this stuff from the 1600s or whatever, from back in their Renaissance era. That would be really interesting.
Oh yeah, it'd be like, oh, that'd be so cool if like in real life, if like some aliens came to Earth and be like, we have all this historical information to share. We've been observing you for years, so here you go. Like,
oh, I love that.
That might be something that they can exchange the next time they meet up somehow.
Well, I guess things go pretty sour when the people on the planet start developing basically like photon torpedoes. They have like these antimatter torpedoes that they start like shooting at Voyager. So the cool part here to me is that Gatana Retz, he's such like a cool dude. It's like he goes and apologizes to Janeway. He's like, I'm gonna go to the captain of the ship and apologize for this attack. But they have to send him back to, I guess, explain what's going on and say, please stop shooting us. And by the way, can you help us get out of, we're stuck in orbit here.
Mm-hmm.
I like how when the torpedoes hit them, they don't. It's just like it's so brief and like why is our shields dropping? You know, it's just sort of like just starts happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're getting bombarded pretty quick because like they're being shot at in 3-day intervals. So from Voyager's perspective, it's like every 3 seconds they're getting hit by a torpedo. So.
Right. I like that was when Tuvok was like, finally, I have something to do. I can announce that the shields are failing.
But this is also when this is when Tom is like, oh, can we start shooting back now? So
yeah, I thought that was surprising. Yeah, I thought that was surprising too.
What comment are you talking about, Aaron?
It would be hilarious if at the end of the episode the planet stops communicating with Voyager as they are too primitive and violated their Prime Directive.
that would be a great that'd be a great like Lower Decks spin on this episode.
Yes.
But yeah. Like, they're like, oh, actually, we're not going to talk to you. And we're way more advanced tech that we've actually like already gone to Earth and came back like 8 times, and you're still stuck in orbit of our planet. Good luck.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that would be good.
Before Gatana Retz returns to the planet, that's when like the doctor talks to him about mysterious Jason Tabriz.
Who is originally Jason? What's his name? It was more of a mouthful. Orliston, Orlastistan. So Orliston.
I guess that would have been Maritza's last name, I assume.
Yeah, it kind of. I think what they chose. I can't even speak. What they chose kind of rolls off the tongue a lot better.
Well, that's good.
Jason Tabriz. But yeah, it is kind of weird the doctor would be like, well, maybe you can find out what happened to him or what. Like, I don't know. Like, it's weird that like this doesn't get followed up on. You know, we see Gatana Retz again at the end of the episode. Yeah. Like, could he at least been like, oh, by the way, tell the doctor, blah, 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 blah.
Well, I think 2 reasons there. One, he was busy. He had a job to do. Like, he didn't have time to go find Jason. But
there's a lot going on.
But also, I think that is very fair because he vanished with them, right? And like they didn't get resolution, right? So it kind of is a parallel for him not to have a resolution to his information that he's requesting, because really he's requesting, hey, tell my son's offspring about me or whatever, but not necessarily that he has to know.
Tell my great-grandchildren that I was a cool hologram from the sky ship. People who I have no connection or relationship to.
True.
But yeah, I guess that is what it is. But you're right. What goes around comes around. You didn't tell your family where you're going, and now Gatana Retz isn't going to tell you what happened to Jason.
Yeah. I have one complaint about this scene, and that it's I really feel like that they should have hugged before he left, and it felt like there was a pause, like it was gonna happen, like kind of like they had that intimate moment where they're talking about his family. I don't know, like it just felt like the perfect time to have a hug, and they didn't, and I was like, man, I think that would have been a benefit to this scene.
If this was Star Trek Discovery, they would have hugged.
They would have said, I love you.
In the earlier draft of it, Janeway says, we'll be here a while longer, and Gatana Retz says a lifetime, which is like, that's kind of cool. Because it's true. It's like his lifetime, basically. He's an old man.
Yeah.
In the live audience, Joel says mountain and lakesiders don't hug. So.
Well, okay.
Janeway isn't either, I don't think. I think she has a horse in that game.
But when Gatana Retz's capsule is coming in for a landing, this is one of the best parts of the episode. But the radio conversation when he's trying to get in touch with command. Let me guess, you finally decided to come home. You're Gatana Retz, and he's like, yes, I actually am. It's another Voyager touchstone. He's become the Amelia Earhart of this planet. He's like the mysterious pilot that vanished, you know?
Yeah. I loved in this scene too,
He's the
like
37s.
how much his confidence has increased. Like he is more persistent. He's way more, argumentative. I don't want to say argumentative, but he's
Assertive.
he's assertive. Thank you. He's fighting for this, mission that he has.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool because just a few minutes ago, he was having to be encouraged by his coworker to like be persistent and go and to the ship, even though that wasn't the original plan and stuff. So I think like his character development in just the few minutes that we have him is so good. And I love seeing him like this way, be so persistent.
Yeah, he has conviction. You know, he's going to be
Yeah.
savior of the skyship.
And I love how these ships look like extruded versions of the capsule, which I did not notice until like
Oh yeah,
last sort of watch.
the ships that end up rescuing Voyager with their tractor beams. Yeah, they're big versions of the more primitive looking 20th century space capsule that Katana Retz was on. They're okay, yeah. So it has like that same kind of design style through it. So
It's like the capsule is this 1701, and this is the 1701D.
yeah, it's still like the same basic shape, just bigger. Exactly like Starfleet design philosophy works. But I guess the solution to this was they basically just had to wait long enough for the planet to develop tractor beams and get them out of
Yeah.
it. It's like, we don't have to solve our problem. We just have to wait for them to solve it
Solve our
for us. But no, they did have to do the diplomacy and first contact stuff with Katana Retz to get to this point. So, but do you have any other thoughts before we talk about the ending and Katana Retz's farewell to Voyager?
I did like that Janeway called it the benefit of the doubt whenever weapons were completely down or their shields were completely down and they're like worried about these two things actually being like the thing that destroys Voyager. And she's like, benefit of the doubt. Everyone's like, okay, we'll trust them.
Thanks.
Like it worked,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that would have been like on the edge of my seat if I was on her crew.
You would have had like Tom's reaction of like, "Are you sure you don't want us to shoot back, Captain?"
I
Either
would
that
be
or by the
nervous.
time that this has happened in season 6, that you're like, okay, whatever. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Who knows?
I'm glad it worked out, but I did think that was kind of funny.
Well, we get that final farewell from Gaetano Retz, where he explains that okay, we can live outside of the planet for a few minutes. So I can't talk to you very long, but
I like the touch of gray on his hair too.
yeah. So it's been like a few decades have gone by since he returned back to the planet, and now that he's back up on Voyager. But he lives long enough for like that final scene on the same hillside that we keep revisiting throughout the episode. That when we see him as an old man, look up and he sees the star vanish, and he knows that like okay, they're gone. My friends on the skyship, they're able to continue their voyage home.
Can you go back one slide to the further out the landscape there? It's like in my head canon, it was like during that war that the Doctor talked about that the castle that was there, it got smashed. Because it's like there's no, it's just a dome on top of it now.
Yeah, where the observatory was, or the one on the right.
Oh yeah, that's right. No, on
The
left,
observatory on the left, and there was another like building, a structure on the right.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they definitely both been
Just
built
like, hey,
over.
what happened to the? Yeah.
But the altar
have-
rock remains the same. Don't worry.
Yes,
Even
that's
after
true.
all the seismic activity, we're good.
Yeah.
It's like a preserved historical landmark, like the ancient pagans worshipped Tahal here, so
The rock that
you
doesn't
can't
Stonehenge.
shake.
change it or anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the rock that doesn't shake. That's why it's been there forever. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was an amazing scene. This also almost made me cry just talking about it. Just a few seconds ago when you were recapping it, but him like looking up and like saying goodbye to an old friend, like he's satisfied. Like his life dream has finally come full circle. And for so many people, so many scientists before him that were reaching for the starship and trying to communicate, and he was the one that had that satisfaction. His dream came true. And there's so many people before him that helped lead to this completion, you know, this dream of his. So,
He was
and
the
it's not
first
even
one
just
who got
his,
to.
yeah. Like it's
He was
their
the
whole society's dream.
Right, like everyone on this planet for centuries, they wanted to see like, the end of the
Yeah.
story, get the answers to the mystery, and he was the first one who, lived long enough to see it through the
I'm
end.
assuming he's a pretty big celebrity too, because he's the only one who's alive that for a big period of time to know what was up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he would be like not even like Neil Armstrong level, like something even more famous than that.
Yeah, I don't think we have a analogy to or anything analogous on our planet.
Almost kind of like the very ahistorical idea of who like Christopher Columbus was, is like
Mm.
this like big famous explorer who has like holidays named after him. Like the actual, like if that was like an actual like real dude and not like the he's actually kind of an idiot who went to the wrong destination and then like captured a bunch of slaves and was not like a he wasn't smart or nice, so it's kind of dumb that
Right.
we have like holidays for him. But he would be like that kind of like hero to this planet.
And hopefully they quarantined Katana Rent so they didn't bring anything back to the planet as well. I'm
Right.
assuming they did that with astronauts, so they probably would, if they're that similar to us, they would have had
Yeah,
a quarantine period.
their parallel development is pretty similar to
Yes.
Earth, so it's like a TOS term, right? Like parallel
Hmm.
development. Like don't they say that in, like
Hodgkin's law of parallel
yeah?
planetary development, I think.
So we could use that to explain why there's English writing on
There you
this.
go.
It's all like in that progenitor DNA. It's just like 1 out of every 200 planets has English writing. It just
Maybe
keeps
the
happening.
marks on the window are like science marks or something, some
Yeah,
like a science language or
or
mathematics.
numbers. Maybe they have English letters, but they don't have Roman numerals. I don't know. Let's just say it's something weird like that. Um, Either one of you have any other thoughts on this episode to end on before we go into the Gornegg section of the show?
I kind of want to shout out Joel's comment. He says, Voyager in the end was the cat stuck up in a tree.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty funny.
totally.
Yeah, it was just such a perfect episode. It's like it there wasn't there was nothing in there that felt like it was extraneous. So, and even though we only spent a little bit of time with each of them, it felt longer. It was a really nice story. Like this could have
Yes.
benefited from being an extra, 45 minutes even or something like that. But
Yeah. It
um,
was very well paced and
yeah,
really well written. I think everything, I have no complaints, honestly. Like, I mean, minus my hug scene that I would have loved to see, but I really love this episode. Like, it's just so hopeful. And, it's cool to,
Hmm.
I don't know, you have like, I don't know, it's just so unique. And I think it's a really strong Voyager episode and strong for Chakotay, which I feel like doesn't come up very much. And, um, it's cool to see all these interactions. And I don't know, this is what I want like space TV to be like. So I really enjoy this episode.
And Cake is Eternal in the live audience is asking about the writer of this episode, but
no, it
the
was Michael Taylor
the
conceived the story, but already crunched for time. He was working on something else, so I guess they handed it over to Joe Menosky at that point.
yeah the teleplay credit goes to Scott Miller and Joe Menosky, but Michael Taylor, he gets the story by credit on a lot of great episodes. He also has The Visitor and In the Pale Moonlight on Deep Space Nine, often considered like two of the best Deep Space Nine episodes. And then here he has what's often considered one of the best Voyager episodes. So uh, good on him. But yeah, Joe Menosky did a lot of work on Voyager and was actually involved in a season 1 of Discovery when it was kind of a revolving door of writers in and out back when Brian Fuller was still involved on that TV show. So, but yeah, we can go ahead and go into the Gorn eggs section of the show where I like to talk about the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections that are fun to mention. Starting off with the title of the episode, Blink of an Eye. Aaron mentioned the confusion with the TOS episode, Wink of an Eye. And I always heard, like, when I was younger about this episode, was that like Brannon Braga wanted the episode to be called Wink of an Eye, and he didn't know that that was a TOS episode because he was,
Oh,
by his own admission, for a long time he was very unfamiliar with the original series. But yeah, Wink of an Eye, Blink of an Eye. I love that the only time in Star Trek that two episodes have the exact same title, it is Enterprise and Discovery both have an episode called Anomaly. And that's the only time it's the exact same. It's always either like Wink of an Eye, Blink of an Eye, Eye of the Beholder or The Eye of the Beholder, or,
yeah,
something like that. They always
Naked
make it a little
Time,
different.
Naked Now.
Yeah. Also, the actor Obi Nadefo, if I'm saying that right, I'm probably not, but he played Protector Kelamane. He also appeared in Deep Space Nine as the Klingon Drex, he named after Doug Drexler. But he was the Klingon son of Martok, who's only in the episode Way of the Warrior, back when it was the changeling Martok and not even like the real Martok. And he's killed in that episode by the changeling Martok, and then he's never brought up again. Martok is never like, that son of a bitch changeling who impersonated me also killed my son Drex. Like, he's just like, oh, I got like this new son Worf. I guess he's just gonna be my boy from now on. I guess was
Empty
the
shell.
thinking there, but yeah, zero F's given over dead son. And then Daniel Day Kim, who played Gotana Retz, also will appear again in Star Trek Enterprise. He shows up in 3 episodes in season 3, playing the Mako Chang. So never has like a really big role in there. He's more of just kind of like a background dude and an action dude in some of the action sequences with the Makos, but he's really underutilized. Trek should let's get Daniel Day Kim back in Trek again. He's a cool actor in some other stuff. He was a character in Angel. People who watch Buffy and Angel. He shows up in a lot of stuff. And the name Gotana Retz shows up in Star Trek again. In Star Trek Picard Season 3, it's part of that fleet we see celebrating during the what is it, Frontier Day, Pioneer Day, whatever it is. But the USS Gotana Retz NCC 97951 Gagarin class starship is seen flying next to the Titan A and some other ships above Earth during that Borg attack on Space Dock and all of that. So
fits with Gagarin too. Like that's a good name match.
Right, yeah, they named this astronaut class of ship after an Earth maybe all Gagarin classes are named after an astronaut from somewhere, from some planet. So cool. But yeah, how cool is that for Gotana Retz that like not only did he help get the sky ship on its way back home and stop the earthquakes on his planet, but the people in the sky ship who he admired, they carried his name and his story back home to Earth with them, and they name one of the Starfleet ships. Well, yeah, then it gets used to attack, so that kind of diminishes his legacy. But beyond that, it's pretty cool. And cool. This is a fun thing. I didn't know about this until researching this episode, but the set for the observatory. So this episode was in Voyager season 6. It came out shortly after Deep Space Nine ended in late 1990, or I'm sorry, in early 1999. They reused the Deep Space Nine docking hatch set for the round circular telescope thing.
That is looking at that now, I'm like, oh, there's the little pieces. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yeah, like the X with the circle on it. So they reused, because they'd taken all the Deep Space Nine sets apart, so they would just reuse the stuff over and over again. We also see that again in Voyager season 6 in the episode Zunkatse, and in the Star Trek Enterprise episode Horizon.
That's cool. Yeah, I thought at first that the microphone that they were using in the scene was possibly from Bride of Chaotica, but it's a completely different microphone.
It would be kind of that time period, though, early
Yeah.
20th century. Uh, the Doctor's away mission on the time displaced planet that ended up lasting way longer than originally intended. That inspires the plot of the Lower Decks episode, Fully Dilated. Fortunately, Janeway and B'Elanna weren't drinking anything to spill on the transporter controls. So.
No, they didn't need to.
And then Aaron pointed this out to me earlier today, but I did notice it rewatching the episode last night in Discord, by the way. We watch these on Thursday nights in Discord if people want to stop by and check that out. But the coastline that we see where this the central city is on the planet looks strangely identical to Southern California, and even the placement of the fault line kind of matches the San Andreas.
I'm curious to see what the satellite picture that they use, because like we were saying before the show, Google Maps didn't exist at the time, so I wondered if they just took just a satellite picture and then sort of cropped it to be that shape, because it's clearly not exactly the right shape, or they just sliced it off, or if it's actually a picture of Southern California. Kind of looks like it could be. The freeways all seem to kind of match.
Yeah. But it's probably just the art department not having enough time to design all this stuff by scratch.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
I think that's probably just a fun in-joke for them too.
Yeah. Let's put our own coastline in here. So,
They're like, we're having to install seismic arm holders and come up with all of these architecture points for this planet that's developing super quick. We don't have time to come up with maps.
That's true. They had to design multiple different looks for the planet for all the different time periods. So a lot went into this.
I kind of want those handle things now.
Yeah, you could use them in your neck of the woods in LA. Speaking of Southern California. That's all I got on Gornegs, but we talked about this episode for over an hour, so y'all know what the three of us think about it. Please comment and let us know your thoughts on Blink of an Eye, and we might share them in the future. You can comment on YouTube, on Spotify. You can talk to us in the Tex-Trek Discord server I just mentioned. But we did receive some subspace transmissions from last week. We talked about the TAS episode, The Magics of Magus 2. We asked people what they thought of that, and on Blue Sky, I Know the Zarbi says, big fan of this episode and TAS in general. I basically hand wave away the ridiculous center of the galaxy BS just as I do watching Star Trek V. Lucian's a great, fun character, and it's hard to disagree with the humans are dicks core of the story. It's the core of a lot of Star Trek stories, I think. And he goes on to say, Spock using magic there because it's logical is also brilliant.
Maybe the center of the galaxy is actually a place. That's just the name of it. It's not really the center of the galaxy. That's just the name.
Yeah, that's or just is a really big area. The center of the galaxy is actually this really wide area that's not that hard to get to. But but I mean, if you're gonna try to explain it away for Star Trek V, then you also gotta accept it in the animated series too. It is the Enterprise goes to the center of the galaxy. It is canonical. Twice. On YouTube, Opinions No One Cares About said Salem, where the witches were hung, not burned, except for one man who was crushed under rock. So I didn't know this, but I guess there actually weren't witches burnt at the stake in the Salem witch trials.
It was one of those generic of everybody. That's what they thought. It was 1973. I think that wasn't a huge knowing. What I'm trying to say, basically, doing the research for a Saturday morning cartoon probably wasn't at the high.
Yeah, it wasn't like you could Google it. You had to actually drive to the library and get the book on the Salem witch trials.
The year is wrong or something. It's it shouldn't have been in that era or something. But you have to kind of, like you said, hand wave away some of those things.
Yeah, maybe Asmodeus had some of the details wrong. It was hundreds of years later, so
yeah.
But that's all we have time for on Subspace Transmissions. But thank you, everyone who is watching us live right now. Thank you, everyone who is listening later. And I can now announce that next week, Taylor and I will be joined by Rachel, and we're discussing the TNG episode Dark Page, That's
Ooh.
that's a Luoxana Troy episode. That's the one where we find out about Kestra Troy, the dark secret in the Troy family. So
They named their daughter after.
it's not an episode that a lot of people talk about. It's an episode I used to dismiss as just like another Luoxana episode. But there's actually a lot there that I'm excited to explore. And I know Taylor's a big fan of that episode, and I think Rachel will have some fun things to say. So please, everyone, come back for that next week. But Aaron, this was a lot of fun. We want to have you back on for we've talked about like some other Voyager episodes we might do, but there's if people have episodes that they want us to do a backtracking retrospective on, please let us know. Recommend some. We don't know when we're getting Strange New World season 3, so the plan is to do a lot of these while we wait. But we will get that Strange New World season 3 at some point. We'll get Academy at some point. But for now, we'll go ahead and sign off. But again, thanks everyone for watching or listening. And until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Subscribe to YouTube to watch the Tex-Trek podcast live or listen to us later on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Stephen Fatheree on socials at TXTrek. Thank you and take care.